Oh, we have to be professional. We're live.
You're trouble, you
are. I've got cabin fever. I need to go out. Properly out.
Out.
Out. I want to be out.
All right, here we go. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Highbury Squad. I hope everyone is keeping safe and sound during this insane time. We're joined by some very cool guys. Firstly, Amanda and Casey are with us again today. You can see them. Here they are. Welcome, kids.
Welcome, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
I'm slowly going mad being at home.
I think everybody is. I think everyone's reached their crescendo almost. I think we're all getting there. Other than Super Kev, who always looks like James Bond, like just
so cool, laying on his bed.
Yeah, he's already worked out and run 500 miles and all that.
Yeah, been up since 4:15 in the morning, retweeting.
How did you know? Was your way?
No.
Okay, so joining us today are three of my favourites. They've always been hugely supportive of me whenever I've been talking football, trying to talk football over the last few years. If you don't listen to a Bergkamp Wonderland, you should. It's a very authentic show. And Danny, Josh and Kris, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
Let's get stuck right into this. So the big news, of course, is the pay cuts, what's going on at Arsenal and Ozil. Now, I have a take on this, and I'd love to get your opinion. And we'll start with Kris, Danny, and Josh first. It seems interesting to me that there were three players who didn't accept the agreement, and only one person's name has come out and has been revealed. That kind of disturbed me a little bit in the sense that does the dressing room or the club have a little bit of a snitch, and is there a little bit of a vendetta towards Mesut Ozil? I've not been his biggest fan, but what I've always respected about Ozil is that he does a lot for charity. But there's a difference between doing a lot for charity and being a humanitarian. A lot of players in the league do a lot for charity, but I actually truly believe that Ozil is a humanitarian. If you look at what he does and how much he spends of his own money to do it, I personally think he's well within his right to ask where his money is going. Kris, why don't we start with you on the Ozil thing? Do you think we have a snitch? What's your take on how he's handled this whole thing? And does it make him look bad, or is he just a scapegoat?
I don't think we... Afternoon, by the way, up to you all. I don't think we have a snitch. I feel like at this time that we're living through at the moment, there's very little stories in the media. There's very little to report on. And any little tidbit that... certain journalists or certain publications can either invent or possibly get a glimpse into, they're running with it. I won't say more than that in terms of legalities, but it just feels a lot like it's scapegoating again. Much like yourself, I think Mesut, he's a dividing character, both on the pitch and off the pitch. But I love how many people, I know it's social media and I know it's journalism, but I love how many people instantly know everything about who said yes, who said no, who's offering this, who's offering that, when the truth is probably nobody does. Like you said, Soph, I think Mesut's got every right to ask where that money's going. I think it's brilliant that the footballers have stepped up and have agreed to this pay cut. But at the same time, it's funny how there isn't much made of things like movie stars, people in extremely wealthy professions that are nothing to do with what I'd call an essential service. I mean, you can fill in the blanks there. So I do think footballers have got a little bit of a bad rap here. And I do feel like as soon as the politicians went after them, this has all been pressurised. That said, it's great that they've stepped up. But I think from Mesut's point of view, until he comes out and says, yes, I had a problem with this. Yes, I had a problem with that, which he's not going to do for obvious reasons. I think it's all speculation. And I do feel for the guy a little bit, and for the players, as you said, there's a couple of players who maybe have questioned it or have said, they're not 100% comfortable with it. Again, nobody knows what's going on in their personal lives. There's a lot of, Kev probably know better than I would on this one, but there's a lot of professional footballers in the game today who are not wealthy or who have made bad investments or are in a position where they're, every penny counts at this stage. It's not their fault they're paid large amounts of money. So we don't know where his investments are tied up. It goes far deeper than that. So I feel like I feel like at this stage there's a lot of speculation, it's a lot of smoke, but I haven't found any significant fire that is credible yet. And I do feel like some people are very gently hopping on that bandwagon a little bit too quickly without any true facts.
Definitely. And when you see kind of how other clubs have handled this, I think our PR team have actually done a really good job. And it seems that if there's always someone to point the finger at, it is Ozil. What's your take on how this situation's being handled in particular, and your thoughts on him? Is he a mercenary here?
Well, I think similar to what Kris is kind of thinking. It's a bit of a coincidence. It so happens to be Mesut Ozil, our highest earner, has been the one that has said no to it. It seems all, a good story to be true, almost in that kind of perspective. But I think the way that we've handled it, there's a couple of clubs I follow closely, Brighton being the other one. I think in terms of those two clubs, the way they've come out and, the stuff that Arsenal have done in the community as well, it's not just about the kind of big holistic things they've done. Mustafi on his birthday, 3 or 4 days ago, donating, a vast amount of money from kind of our perspective for feeding families. I think it was 16,000 meals he donated as part of his birthday. And I think the kind of press we put out there is not too in your face, because as you kind of say, people in the game will put money into charity because they can, rather than should they, in the kind of humanitarian point of view. And I think the way we're going about it is just not completely in your face. Look at what we're doing. Look at what we're doing. Look at what we're doing. Give us a medal for it. This is what we're doing. Don't need to give us a medal or anything. We're doing what we should as a club. We're classy that way. And I think it's always been that kind of, we know we're good, but we don't kind of shout about it necessarily as much as other people might do. And at least we haven't put our foot in it like other certain clubs, with furloughing certain staff and utilising the government to furlough as well, to take that 80% that they could claim if they wanted to, and just dealing with it all kind of, self-sustaining, really.
Danny, we talked on the show last week as well about how people were really proud of how Arsenal were handling the whole situation, and that maybe it would change some opinions about Kroenke as well. And Ozil asking about where his money will be going, especially if he's deferring payments that are in turn going to help the club. I think he's genuinely coming from a place of, I want to know that it's going to people. What's your take, Danny?
I don't like Ozil. I think he's a cancer in the club, and the sooner he's gone, the better. I can't stand him. I hate everything about him, and he doesn't suit. We don't need a 10 anymore, but Ozil's asking the right questions, because it's not like it's my Barnet or my Peterborough United where they really do need to save the money. If, say, Stan agrees to all the players to take 10 grand a week off them each, it's going to be more than that. But where's that 10 grand going to go? It's not going into the club, is it? Because if the club's got no income, then Stan's going to have to pay up the gap from in the finances from his own pocket. So basically, any money that he gets the players to save is going to be saving him money. And when he has got ranches the size of Wales in America, he's one of the biggest landowners in America, he's not short of a few quid, is it? Now, Josh is an LA Rams fan, and Josh was telling us that it's been reported that Stan's going to lose about $1 billion when it comes to building the new stadium. So maybe that's got something to do with it. I don't trust Stan as far as I could throw him in. He's a big fat git.
Well, firstly, we're going to have to change Josh's allegiance. You can't support the Rams. That's a big fat no, Josh, but we'll talk about that later. Super Kev, you and I have kind of had a go at Ozil. Amanda's defended him a little bit more because, I think, she just loves him really. But what's your take as a player, right? If you were asked
I've not really had a go at Ozil. A little
bit, Casey. Come on, Super Kev.
How?
Yeah, just una poquito.
In playing wise?
Yeah, of course. Not having a go at him.
He's up and down. He's Look, we could go into it about that, but right now on this, look, you don't go from being a humanitarian to all of a sudden turning around and saying, I'm not going to give that percentage because I give enough on that side. It doesn't make sense to me. I think it's a witch hunt. I think Mesut Ozil is one of he does some of the best humanitarian work in the Premier League. A lot of the time he doesn't actually want the kudos, but it comes out that he's done it with the operations and everything like that. And all of a sudden, we don't even know if he's one of the guys who said no. We don't even know if it's true or not.
And that is true. We don't.
Yeah,
That's
we
true.
don't even know if it's true or not. But the sensationalism of the media, who can we target to get everything stirred up? Mesut Ozil. You put his name in, and all of a sudden everybody's lumping on. We don't even know if it's true.
Would you have taken a pay cut, Casey? Would you?
The whole squad, you do it as a squad because one, the club can't do it for you. You have to agree as a squad. So as a squad, you would agree to the pay cut, deferral, call it what you like. You can agree to that, no problem. But it is well within the rights to find out exactly where it's going. Because remember, they're taking money out of your family's mouth, and my family's mouth, and all the squad's mouth. So wouldn't it be smart to find out exactly where it's going? So I think that part might be right with what the squad agreed. Let's find out where it's going. But with all this Ozil stuff and this mystery of a two, it's madness. To me, it's madness.
But that's what leads me to believe, Super Kev, that someone said something. There's someone who's deliberately gone out of their way to tarnish Ozil, and also Mr. John Cross, who, I think we've all gone at it with John at certain points. Since his headline of Ozil signing for Man United, it seems that since then he's really dug his heels in a little bit on Ozil too. So I don't know who's going to jump in there. Kris, were you going to jump in and say something? Or
I was just about to jump in. I was going to say we've got Hector Bellerin in our squad as well. Do you think that guy might have asked a few questions? He's not short of an opinion of the kind of good that can come in the world, and is pushing for all these sorts of things. When you go through like his Instagram, we've had players like Aaron Ramsey in terms of campaigning they've done as well. We do have bright, intelligent other players. This isn't just. If Mesut Ozil wants to know where the money was going, he's not the only one in that squad. So to say he's not the only one with, a true heart in there. We've got players who will have, and I think the one of Bellerin, he is going to be the other player that was going to have asked, where's this money gone as well.
And according to reports, Amanda, it was Bellerin and Arteta who really were the ones that kind of spearheaded the negotiations, and kind of Arteta obviously starting it all off. What do you think about the Ozil, but then the role that Arteta and potentially Bellerin have played in this, and your overall thoughts on the squad taking a pay cut?
Well, I just think John Cross has got what he wants, hasn't he? He's got clickbait. He's got everyone going mental about it. He couldn't have put any other player in there, could he, that would have spiked this?
He's done it again, John.
He has. He's done it again. And not only that, they've got nothing to report on. There's no football going on. There's no transfers. There's no anything. They've got to do something to keep their paper and their jobs alive. Of all of them, Bellerin and Ozil, to what we know, are the biggest ones that deal with charities all around the world. So I will refrain in criticising Ozil for declining the pay reduction until I know more. And as we all know, we don't know anything. We are just reading and hearing what people are saying. And until it's official, I've got nothing to say on it. Because I look at it like this, yeah? When the health secretary turned around and said footballers should help, I watched it live. He was asked a direct question. And then, as much as everybody hates Piers Morgan, I watch him quite regularly in the news in the morning. He goes for every politician, full stop. And when he said to Matt Hancock, are you going to take a reduction? Matt Hancock said, no, I'm just going to work all the hours.
Well, has Piers Morgan taken a pay cut?
But I don't know. But that's not the point, is it? The health secretary said footballers should. Piers Morgan said everybody should, not just footballers. I think they've been scapegoated a little bit. There are plenty of billionaires in this country that are probably not doing anything. Anyway, so getting back to that, there is no news going on at the moment. And this is what everyone's talking about. And he has been lambasted for this. And it is a little bit like Wenger in, Wenger out. You either like Ozil or you don't. So I do. And that's it.
Amanda, Sophie, everyone, this could be somebody in the club leaking this direct to John Cross. Because remember, this is a very, very important transfer window coming up when it comes. So if they want him out, they've got to try and turn that ship around and turn everyone against Mesut Ozil. And this is the perfect opportunity.
And that's why I was asking if there's a snitch. If there's a snitch, because if that's the case, why not reveal the other two players?
Yeah, I bet one of them.
They won't.
No, they won't.
They won't because Ozil's the one they want out.
Yeah.
Well,
how would that go down? How would that go down in a dressing room, Kev? You've been there. If I presume there is, no matter what dressing room you're in, you have your close mates and then you have your teammates. So some that you would associate with off the pitch, some that you would just class as teammates. You might like everybody, but some are closer than others. If you had a player in the dressing room alongside you that was either actively telling you, I don't want to cut my wages, or was actively saying to you, hey, what about him over there? And essentially, doing the gossip thing, how would you react to that as a member of that dressing room? Would you take that sort of personally to heart, or would you just kind of, just pass it off?
No, Kris, that is not tolerated in the dressing room. And under no circumstances am I saying it's an actual player, because it could be a club official.
Yeah.
The reason why moles, and that's what we used to call them. We used to call them moles. There used to be a mole in the dressing room. They soon get weeded out because you find out who does the talking. You find out who the allegiance a player has to a journalist. Everybody finds that out in the end. So we'd know, because it's either you can't be split as a dressing room. It's either if there's 25 in the dressing room, 25 do it, or none of you do it. Okay.
Yeah.
The reason why I reckon it could be, I'm not saying it is, it could be a club official, is because if you remember after the end of last season, losing in the Europa League final, there was kind of a witch hunt for Mesut Ozil, and stuff was coming out in the press and all that kind of thing. So he's got 1 year left after this, and if they can get him off the books, his wage could really pay for 2, 3, 4 players. That might suit Mikel Arteta. So we don't know what's going on the internal part of Arsenal, but the dressing room side, I'm not saying for any stretch it's a player doing the talking. It could be a club official who just puts that seed out there, let it grow and manifest itself, and then let's see where the chips fall.
Also, maybe Arteta, and this is where I kind of want to move into, Danny, is Arteta maybe doesn't want Ozil around either. And I'm not speculating here or whatever, but Arteta is trying to build this team in his image. And we all know that successful teams are built in the image of their manager. We've had two great managers in George Graham and Arsene Wenger who built teams in their image, their personalities. We've seen it with Antonio Conte, Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola. And Arteta just feels like that manager that can do that can really build a team in and play the way he wants. So, Danny, what's your thought on Arteta's handling of things over the last couple of weeks? Are you impressed with his leadership? And is this all a moot point if we don't back him? Will he fail, or is he the kind of manager that's going to be able to succeed bringing up players like Martinelli, Saka, and those young folks?
Before I answer that, I just want to give a quick analogy. If John Cross wrote an article on who was stealing donuts in the Arsenal dressing room, if he wanted to get clickbait, he'd put Ozil was stealing donuts. I think that sums up the whole thing. Ozil is a donut stealer. What? I'll click on that and see what's going on. I think that sums up. We all know John Cross, bless his heart. Arteta, I think, has got the longest football management honeymoon in football. I don't know a single Arsenal fan that has a well, there's probably a couple of clickbait merchants, but I don't know a single Arsenal fan that doesn't love him, that is thinking this is going to be great. I mean, the fact that we're unbeaten so far for nearly 4.5 months this year, that's magnificent. That's got to be. The only last time Wenger went that long unbeaten was 2004, and every summer. Apart from that, he never managed to do it. But I like the fact that everyone likes Arteta, and the future is with Arteta, and just got to make sure that we can hold on to him. But if you look at what his, let's listen to the last pod when you're not a massive fan, Sophie, of fraud Pep, are you? And Kris has a few things to say on that. But if you look at the way that the fraud Pep is managed, in that position, you've got De Bruyne. Now, De Bruyne doesn't just stand 10 yards outside the penalty area waiting for someone to give him the ball so he can do a bit of magic. He's all over the place. And if that's the kind of player that Arteta is going to, he's going to probably copy Pep's tactics to a certain degree, because that's what he's learned, and a little bit of Wenger thrown in until he develops his own tactics in his own way. But to start off with, that's probably the way he's going to go. And if you want to do that, what De Bruyne does for Man City, you're not going to get that from Ozil. You may have got that a few years ago, and Ozil isn't going to play out wide left like he did at Real Madrid, where he kind of made his name. And he's not the dynamic player that he was for Germany. For us, in every single box that you've got that you need to tick for Ozil, he's not ticking any of them for Arteta. Now, I don't think Arteta is going to be a scumbag and try and get him out of the club in dirty, underhanded ways that some of the papers might be reporting. I think he'll generally just stay until his contract is up, and then he'll be off to play for LA Galaxy or something like that.
I'll take him. I'll hug him. I'll love him all over again.
It is.
I'll be a total hypocrite. Why not?
Well, Mike was when Rooney went to play for DC United. Suddenly, Rooney was the best player in the world.
Well, it's like the only thing I'll never. I had to embrace Robbie Keane. So if I can do that, I can do pretty much anything. Josh, I'm not sure if I know how much you admire Arteta yet, but what's your take on him and his role so far, and how we feel he's handling things during this insane time? And poor guy also did get COVID as well, poor bastard. Jeez. Yeah,
I mean, the number of lives he kind of saved by, getting infected and it actually making the Premier League and everyone else kind of actually do something. Yeah. Stop the games. Because 2 days before we were shoveling in a Man City away trip to try and get in. But in terms of how he's got the squad playing, I think he's been a breath of fresh air, if I can get my teeth in. It's not that often that you speak to people in the outside world now. So you kind of forget how to talk. Not great for podcasting, but we go on. But yeah, I think in terms of what Arteta's got going, he's a bit closer to kind of Wenger than Emery was in terms of the kind of expansive play. I think what he's trying to do with the squad is great as well. I could completely back him for what he wants to do. And if that means that some of the players that I like don't necessarily work with that system, then so be it. I think the kind of larger fan base have got more faith in Arteta because he was at Arsenal than we had if, say, Emery came in and wanted to kind of tear this all up. I don't think we would have given him the same time of day, the same honeymoon that Danny's kind of talked about that we're going to give Arteta. It's the same we've kind of seen at United with Solskjaer.
And Frank, right? At Chelsea as well. Frank's getting a bit of a break.
Yeah, but Arteta's learned under the best, isn't he? Wenger and now Pep.
So Frank's played for some of the best too. I mean, I think Ole's played for what? Go on.
The reason Arteta is getting, and he also played for us as well, and he loves us. So, as I said last week, if you watch that documentary, I don't care what anyone says. I think Pep Guardiola was brilliant in it, and I also loved Arteta. And if he's going to be half as good as Pep, we'll be fine. I'm going
to give Kris a chance to attack me for my fraud Pep comment, but
I'll never do that.
I don't get it personally, but anyway, he's a winner.
I felt like he was hamming it up a little bit. To me, I guess my expectations of Pep as a coach was a bit more, not zen, but I just think there were moments where he overly hammed things up a little bit. Anyway, so. I do feel though, Kris, that learning under Pep, of course, is going to be the greatest gift that Arteta brings to Arsenal. What's your take on him and how he fits into the mold right now? And when you do look at United and Chelsea, ex-legends coming back, although legend I wouldn't say is how to describe Arteta's playing career at Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big fan of Mikel Arteta as a footballer, and there's a certain member of our crew, a certain Mr. Jason Davies, who will never let me live down the line of Arteta can do a job in midfield against West Brom, because we lost that particular game 2-1. I think Mikel was at fault, and he's never ever let me forget that line. So bless him. But all jokes aside, I think he's the thing that really impresses me about since he's come in and his management approach is he strikes me as a coach that you can approach. Which rhymes. He strikes me as a guy that any of the players could go to at any time with anything, whether it be tactical, whether it be on the pitch, off the pitch. And he sounds like a guy who listens and learns. And that's so huge in managerial terms, I think, in the modern game. And for all my sort of dislikes of him, I think that's where the game's moved on from someone like Jose Mourinho, because the guy is so set in his ways. He does things his way, and that's it. The modern coaches adapt. Nagelsmann's another one. You know, they change their style of play, they adapt to the squad they've got, and they work with the squads they've got, and they develop the players. It's very easy. And I think this is where my biggest issue with Pep comes in. Personally, is that he's never really had a challenge. He's always managed a club that's been perfectly set up for him, with the finances to do so and the best possible players. Has he developed those players? 100%. You know, I'm not denying he's a fabulous coach, probably the best coach in the world. But as regards to sort of his overall record, I'd just like to see him tested more. And I think what you're going to see in Arteta is a guy who, assuming he isn't poached, because, you know, where our club is at the moment, sadly, is not quite where we'd like it to be. We are susceptible to quote unquote bigger clubs coming in for our players, and that would extend to the manager if he has success. But I think he's a guy who's bought into the long-term project. I think he wants to be here. I think he wants to develop the squad he's got. He's given players that probably any of us maybe would have said we wouldn't have thought we'd see the light of day again. Sorry, Squadron. But he's given everybody an opportunity, and he's given everyone a fresh slate, and he's given these players an opportunity to prove themselves. And I'm quite fascinated by what he would have. I say what he would have done with the transfer market. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen now, and I think that particular window is going to be very interesting. But the type of player he's potentially going to bring in is going to be very interesting, because I think over a period of time he will start to go away from the sort of the Wenger ball, if you will. I think Freddie wanted to try and carry that on. I think Emre tried to carry it on and then went sort of wildly off kilter when it all started to go off the rails. But I think Arteta wants his own style. And if you're Mikel Arteta and you come up under the Guardiola style, I think you want something to make you unique. You don't want to be that guy that everyone turns around and goes, oh yeah, well, he's just the new Pep. You know, you want to be the first Mikel Arteta. You don't want to be the new Pep. And I think that we've already seen signs of that. As Josh said, you know, he's been exemplary since all this, everything kicked off with the virus and everything. I think he's been brilliant. He's been a great spokesman. He's been there to sort of offer his thoughts and share things from within inside the club almost. I've been really impressed with him. Really, really impressed. And as a bloke, he strikes me as the guy you could just sit there and talk to for hours, and he would just expand your mind on football.
Yeah.
Players.
He's definitely a good guy. My little cousin went to school with his kids, and you could tell, like KC, he's a super classy guy. He knows what he's doing, and he kind of brings people together, and he's very much like that. He's very likable in real life too. But let me ask you this, KC, as a player, before we get to a little bit of fun as well. Playing behind closed doors. Now, as fans, I think we all want to see the season ended somehow. But most of us also don't, because we don't want Liverpool to win the title. But we all know it's inevitable. It's going to happen. As a player, let's say, you know, this happens and you have to play behind closed doors. You just put your head down, get on with it. The interaction with the fans. I mean, you've played at Goodison, Highbury. You've played in the depths of, you know, Turkish rivalries with fans who are crazy. What's your thought on that?
Look, you got to look at it two ways now. Having the crowd there makes a massive difference to the home teams, especially. But when you see what's going on now, just to be able to play football, just to get back to training and being able to play, is going to be such a godsend to these players right now, because being isolated at home and training on your own, that you can only do that for so long until your brain starts getting frazzled. So going back into it and playing football, fair enough, the crowd won't be there, but doing your job, that's what you get paid to do, to play football. And hey, listen, there might be an opportunity to really make a difference if you get the right results, because it's a level playing field. You're getting back to it, and you just never know what could happen. So I think it's going to be really, really welcome for players to get back playing.
Amanda, what do you think about the, you know, behind closed doors? You know, to me, it feels like it's the only scenario to really end the season. And as fans, we have to accept that. Do you want a bit of a refund for the games that you didn't get to see? Like, what's your take on all of this?
Well, I think we have to play behind closed doors because we have to finish the season. You can't just null and void it. There's too many questions that need answering. Europe, and we'll move on to that in a second. But my season ticket needs to be refunded. That's for sure, because there's 9 or 10 games that I paid for and I'm not going to be able to see or go to the game. I don't know what they're going to do. It's unprecedented. It's uncharted waters. It's everything. So we have to wait and see.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's stick with you for a minute. And I don't know if this is true or not, but the rumor is that if the season doesn't end for any reason, there is a Champions League potential coefficient situation that comes into play. Casey, you're shaking your head. It's never going to happen, is it? Am I living on my little rose-colored glass island, just praying?
It's never going to happen. It's never in a million years going to happen, because last season's stuff. Remember, going on last season's results, there's teams that ain't even in the league. So how could you put this season into it doesn't make sense to me. It makes no sense whatsoever.
I don't even think it's true. My dad said to me this morning, "Have you heard about this? We could be going in blah blah blah." I'm like, everyone is so bored. They're making up so many stories. It's like, and everyone's praying that we get in the Champions League. To be honest, that's why they've got to finish this season. We have to know. I don't know. I don't know.
We'd all take it.
Yeah, of course we would, but I don't think it's true.
When you think about it, look at the players that we've signed without Champions League football, Danny. That's quite. It's not bad, is it? I mean, we signed Laka, Oba. We even convinced Martinelli, who's the hottest young property in football. I mean, you can just imagine like getting back on our feet again and getting back into the Champions League, having that money, what we could do. But that seems like so far away, doesn't it? Like it just feels like we just want to be competitive in the league again and win a few games there. But what's your take on this myth, Danny? Is a myth? Am I in dreamland?
Oh, I don't believe anything. I used to have, when I turned my computer on, Chrome launches about 6 tabs. One of them used to be News Now set to Arsenal, one Guardian set to football, and one Daily Mail set to football. Get all ends of the spectrum on there. I've turned them all off. I don't read anything at all that has anything to do with football because they don't know what's going on. Everything they say is all made up nonsense. No one knows. And so I don't read any of it. But everything is falling into place for us now. As other teams are falling apart, like Spurs go, "Oh, let's get a new stadium. Let's go and get one of the most expensive managers in world football. We'll be all right." Oh yeah, well you've overspent by $1 billion on the stadium or whatever it was. The manager's not doing the job, and he didn't sign on as a pay-as-you-earn contract, did he? He's on a massive contract. They need to get rid of him, which they're going to have to sack Jose sooner or later because he's not going to do it for him. The players don't like him. The fans don't like him. Well, most people don't like him. So then
but we do.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. But then you look at all the bits that are falling into place for us. We've got a young, hungry, ambitious manager with great ideas. We've got magnificent strikers up front. I mean, if you look through the entire Premier League history of Arsenal, Aubameyang would definitely be in the top 5 strikers of all time, right up there with Kev and Wrighty and a few others. I might have a visitor.
Are you talking about top 5 all time at Arsenal?
In the Premier League history, yeah, Aubameyang would definitely be in the top 5. And we've got, like you were saying, that some of the players that we've signed, they're magnificent players. They're all doing brilliantly. We've got a really good right, but I'm not going to go for all the positions. We've got at last, Kev. Many of us have been moaning on the podcast for years that we want what you came through at Arsenal. We want young English players coming through that love the club, that know the system, that aren't going to bugger off to Spain or Italy at the drop of a hat. We've got that coming through finally. Everything is right for us at the moment. And then this all happens. So it's just bad luck. But as for the season finishing, I don't think the season is going to finish because they won't start the new season until September, October. And then if COVID-20 starts, because it'll be 2020 by then, if that starts in September, October, like it has done with previous versions of it, then they're not going to start the season then. And so what we're going to do is going to be like the World Cup. Everything's going to be going on at Christmas, isn't it? So
I mean, the amount of sports they want to fit into 2021 is just not realistic. Happen. None of it's going to happen. Josh, interesting comment from Danny. Aubameyang, is he in your top 5 all time? Premier League, he did say.
In terms of strikers, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because to be honest, in terms of Premier League, you've got Omri, who's right at the top. Righty's going to be in there. I think, Bergkamp, Carnu, it's close.
Van Persie,
Anelka for his season.
Kabadiawara.
I mean, I was going to go with Nicholas Bentner, but that's a hill I'll happily die on that one. But
let me ask you this, Josh, and by the way, feel free to ask Super Kev any question you want while you have him here. What is the thing you miss most about football?
Oh.
Other than the football, of course, but what is it that you got? And I'd like each of you to answer this. What do you miss most about just football weekend or a game day, whether you're going or not?
What am I missing the most? It's a really hard one because it's kind of so many things have tumbled down with this kind of ending. Even the mundane things that, my Twitter timeline is absolutely boring and full of politics. I just can't be dealing with that at the moment. I'd like a bit more football in there. Yeah. I think it's just a case of even if, I haven't dropped to the depths of watching the Belarusian league. Kris might be watching that. I'm not sure. But in terms of watching just any football, I think just in terms of why do we watch football? It's just enjoying a sport happening. I can't really watch clips back. It's not something I kind of enjoy hugely. Are
you watching any of Super Kev's highlights? Have you done that yet?
Oh, I probably should. I'll add that to my list of things to do. But yeah, it's kind of there's so much missing. It's kind of hard to pinpoint it down to one thing. But totally the atmosphere of a stadium, or just sitting down and knowing you're going to do, like we do, a podcast afterwards. You sit down, watch an Arsenal game and know you're going to talk to people about it. Something's actually going to progress with the kind of storyline that is football. That you're going to get this new things. We're going to kind of see the development of Arsenal, Arteta's tactical system, kind of see how that's coming through. And it's just kind of everything's been put on pause, hasn't it? It's just really weird situation at the moment where, I've watched Sunderland till I die. What else am I going to do? That's it. That was the only thing on Netflix I had left to watch on football. Can't watch Russell Crowe talking over Leeds United stuff.
The Formula One series is good. Have you seen that? The Formula One series is brilliant, actually. I just finished that yesterday. Unbelievable. I love that. That was brilliant.
Can't do F1. F1.
Kris, do you miss Premier League, Liga or MLS?
Oh, that's a toughie. Well, I mean, obviously I have to say Premier League because Arsenal, but Liga is definitely my biggest miss in terms of the league because it's the one I enjoy the most. Sounds like sacrilege to say, but I think for the last 2, maybe 3 seasons, I haven't genuinely enjoyed many Premier League football matches that don't involve Arsenal. And if I'm being completely honest, some of them have even involved Arsenal I still haven't enjoyed. So yeah, I do miss my French football, and obviously being part of a podcast that talks about that's missing from my schedule. And I think, like, to answer the same question that you gave Josh, I think the word for me is structure. Which sounds like a weird word to use because you'd think you'd say like family, friends, and and of course I miss all of those things, but it's part of my weekend. It's part of the culture of how I live my life. If you look at how much football there is, you mentioned MLS. Most people go to bed on a Saturday night and watch Match of the Day. I'm sat there watching MLS because I'm a geek. But there's so many leagues from so many different places you can watch at any time, whether it be online, whether it be, sort of TV, whatever. And you take that away and there's just this yawning void of nothing. And like Josh said, there's people are not talking about stuff. The transfer rumours are being more made up than I've ever seen just to get people talking. The idea that clubs are even negotiating for players at the moment is laughable. So I do chuckle at some of those. But yeah, it's just the structure that it has in our life. And, we all want football to return safely and at the right times. I stand by that. And if that means we have to wait, till the next year even, then if that's the right thing to do for humanity, then obviously it's the right thing we should do. But I do miss that buzz of getting up on a Saturday. Probably says more about my life than anything, knowing that I've got a weekend of football. And as a Sunday league manager as well, I do miss the interaction with my lads. I don't get to see them, which isn't always a bad thing. But I don't get to run my club. I don't get to enjoy grassroots football either.
KC, is this kind of taking you back to how it felt when, because now you're so busy with all of your media work and everything, does this take you back a little bit to when you retired and then you couldn't play, and then it was like that shock to your system? What do I do? This was my life since I was like 8 years old. Is it comparable in any way?
Sophie, I've never ever felt that. I've never ever felt that. When I retired, I knew I was retiring. I've been involved in business before I retired. So, I was happy to move across to the business side. There's business there, there's media. I think for me, this kind of void is the unknown that I miss. Because when you're going into a match day or a match weekend, you're looking at all the other teams that are playing. You're looking at Arsenal's team. What's the team? Because you're going into unknown, aren't you? Whoever they're playing, what Arsenal's going to turn up? We don't know, because Arsenal could be as bad or as good as they want. We've seen them on that roller coaster. So it's the unknown that I miss. I miss that, not knowing the team, not knowing the results, and looking at social media. I think it's everything put all in the pot and made a big gumbo. That's what I miss right now, because do you know what? You realize how much you love football when it's taken away from you. You really do.
Yeah, I mean, and that we talk. It's almost like when you've gone through injuries and stuff. You love playing, and then you get injured, and then you realize, wow, if I can't play my football, then and for us fans, I think for me, the thing I miss a little bit, kind of what Kris said, is the routine of it, the structure, the schedule. Like Saturday morning, I get up, I do my thing. I'm going to watch all the games here in the US, and obviously plan my travel for when I want to come to London and watch. And then it just feels like that part of it. And it's really weird. I don't know if you guys feel the same, but we've had all this time at home, and it's like Amanda said before, it's like that time between Christmas and New Year where you say you're going to do all these things and you've got this list and you're going to work down that list and chalk them all off. And really, have I done any of those or a lot of those? Some, I feel like because there's that unknown, Casey, because you don't have something to look forward to, you can't see it. That's been a real mental block for me. I'm usually stronger than that. I usually can be more disciplined than that and prepare for things. But it just feels that there's nothing coming. So I feel like, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. That's Amanda. You think?
Yeah.
We know we lost you. Go on, Casey.
But you know what helps? Do you know all these social media and these platforms like YouTube, etc.? They are there to help cure some of that want. Because when you go and you start, somebody just put on, when you start going and reviewing some of the season reviews from yesteryear, forget Premier League, start going back into the 70s and 80s and seeing the reviews and seeing some of the players and the games. It really does put you at the old lady Highbury. It really does put us in a great position. I reviewed the 88-89 season the other day.
Did you?
The season review. And I was pleasantly surprised to see our Princess Gooner on there. I've got to tell you, I saw Princess Gooner. I put it on, didn't I? I put the video on.
Oh,
when
we want
you
our
go
two
back
girls
and
back.
you look at these things, it means a lot. It really does mean a lot. And, it's the history of the club. So everybody, you could start educating yourself. Even if you were there, you still can go back and learn.
Amanda, let's start this little fun bit with you. And we've all done the quarantine parties and who you want to sit at your table and, all that jazz and stuff like that. But let's just say football was never going to come back, right? And you were stuck and you could only have, it's my game, Casey. You could only have, take one game with you, right? To watch over and over again and not 89 before you say it, right? You could only take one game with you. You could have one player to talk about tactics in that game, right? And one player to socialize with and hang out and have fun. All of you think about that. One game, you got two players, one for fun and one for like serious tactical game talk. Who is going with you in there's never going to be football ever again land?
Right. For fun will be KC up there. Me and him always have fun when we go out. So, yeah, I know. I guarantee I'll have fun with him. I don't know, because I didn't know this is coming, this one. The one game apart from 89 that I would take, that I'd watch over and over again.
Yes.
Do you know what? There's probably hundreds, but one of the games that I thought was really thrilling, which I know you're all going to go, what the fuck, is... Do you remember when we played in the League Cup at Reading and we were like 84-0 down by half time or something? And we came back and won it 7-5. Oh, I don't know. 7-2, whatever it was, right? 7-5. That was so thrilling and unbelievable. Something like that, because you'd want excitement if you were stuck. And for tactics.
Or just when you want to have a serious convo and like really go deep. You know what I mean?
It would be Adams, I think. I think Adams, KC for the fun, bit of tactics with KC. And I think the Reading game for thrills. Or maybe Overmars at Old Trafford, or maybe Vieira and...
There we go, maybe.
When we won the league, yeah, 2-2, and they thought we hadn't won it because it was a draw. There's so many. When Rocky scored at White Hart Lane.
Hey, stop it.
Can't we have like 10?
No, Danny, what's yours, mate?
You need to unmute, Danny.
Amateur podcasters, Jesus Christ.
We still can't hear him.
You're still muted, Danny.
Go on then.
It's like having Jason on.
I've got it. No,
Congrats.
Chance man brought me around some bananas, and you didn't want to hear me getting excited over bananas because I've not eaten any in ages. They're like currency around here. Am I allowed to include torture in
Sure,
this
it's your choice, absolutely.
Okay. The game is the 2006 Champions League final. The torture chair is going to be put Jens Lehmann in there, and then Arsene Wenger is the person who's going to watch it with me. And I'm just going to point out to him, I'm going to say, boss, when you've got Abue, Toure, Campbell and Cole, you don't need to bring on Flamini at all. You've got Gilberto playing in front of them. If anything, bring on Van Persie and Bergkamp. Scare the life out of Barcelona. We're winning 1-0. You don't need to do anything like bring on these other players. And then he brings on Flamini in 74th minute, and Eto'o scored in the 76th. No, don't need to do that. He should have gone, going all out, going full, as we would now call it, full Jens Lehmann, bring on Bergkamp and Van Persie. We'd have won that game 6-0. And then I'd electrocute.
Why do you want to relive that torture?
So they can leave. I drove all the way to bloody France and back in the day, didn't I? Worst day of my life. I just want to torture them, electrocute them, and go, this is what you've done to me every living moment. And I don't even like the Champions League. I hate European football. But that's what, just to get angry at them and get some, and then I'll make them pay me back for all that thing, all that rubbish I had to put up with.
Which player are you taking for fun, and which one are you taking for some deep convos?
Oh, Wenger. Doesn't Wenger count as a player?
Yeah, you can pick Wenger. Totally.
Yeah, Wenger for just to school him on his tactics, because his tactics have wound me up for so long. And then the player to annoy is going to be Jens Lehmann. Going to torture him for all those years of all of that lot.
Wow, very calculated from Danny. I love it. Very J.R. Ewing of you. I'm
still angry.
Josh, what about you? I have a feeling this might skew a little bit differently.
Oh, I've got two. The first one that came to my mind, to be honest, was going to be the Arsenal versus Leeds. You know, Thierry Henry, where he scored his goal and his comeback.
Oh, yeah, good bet.
Just for that one.
Good shout.
I think I'll stick with it, because then I think it gives someone an FA Cup final to pick, and also allows me to be quite clever with the players I get to bring. So the deep conversation, I'm going to pick the man who's currently at the helm. Mikel Arteta was in the midfield for that game. So probably take him for a deep conversation. And then just to mess around, I could say Thierry Henry, I think it'd be a bit too much. There's too much beautiful on that island, really. So I'm going to take Wojciech Szczesny, and we can go. We can take Szczesny.
Oh,
nice.
I think you know what? Can I change? Kev, I love you, but I'd have to take Podolski as well.
Oh, she's subbing you, Kev. She's literally subbing you in front of you.
I'll have Podolski on the sub
to me
bench.
all the time.
I'll have Podolski on the subs bench. So if you don't live up to it, Kev, you're off.
You're fired. You're fired. Yellow. Where are the yellow and red card? We need to bring that back. Kris, what about you? What's
He's doing his hair. He's busy. Look.
Sorry,
I know he'd probably want to take Zlatan, but he can't because he never played for Arsenal, thanks to Wenger. So
I'm just going to say, you can imagine Amanda on a night out. She'd go out with Kev and she'd go off for a kebab with David Hillier. Honestly, shameless. My one was, I was a little bit torn between two. The one I've gone for is the one I'm going to stick with. The 4-0 v Everton, Tony Adams. Would you believe it? That just for the day. I think Danny was there. I was there, very young then. But yeah, memorable. But I'm going to go for another game where I was. 2002 FA Cup final for me. Everything about that day, it was that season. It was the sort of almost inevitability of winning that game once we got in front against Chelsea is always a bonus. The weather was glorious. The whole weekend, the whole day, fantastic. As for who I would go out I'll go out for a night out with. It's got to be Freddie, innit? I mean, absolutely adore the man, and I imagine. Just going to put it out there, he'd probably be a decent night out, I would have thought. As for tactical breakdown, just because I've been pleasantly, not surprised, but pleasantly pleased by his tactical insight, I'd have a little chat with Lee Dixon, I think. Find him really interesting to listen to on various podcasts. So, yeah, I think he'd be fun. And the first question I'd ask him is, why could he never run that fast when he ran off after Freddie's ball at the net when he was playing it right back?
Super Kev could answer that probably. Maybe, but yeah, no, Dicko's a good one. We like Dicko. He's really evolved here as well as a broadcaster, and he's kind of I enjoy his dulcet tones. Super Kev, who are you taking? You still get to play as well. You just can't take yourself. Game, one game you can watch over and over. It can be Everton as well. I'll allow it.
No. Look, my finest moment in my career was The Great Escape, but I'm not going to mention that on here because I'm gonna hit an Arsenal one, and I'm going to go back. Amanda touched on it, but sod Amanda, this is mine. Arsenal versus Spurs at White Hart Lane. The third game. Remember, we drew after 2 games. Flip of the coin, went back to White Hart Lane. Arsenal losing 1-0, Clive Allen scored. Charlie Nicholas goes off injured, and Ian Allinson goes on.
Oh, Ian Allinson.
Ian Allinson scores to make it 1-1.
Colchester
and then Rocky
legend.
comes up with the winner. Bless him, right at the death. That's my game. The 2 players I want is Ian Allinson and Dave Rocastle, because I know there was a lot of flack flying around at that stadium when they were 1-0 down. So Ian Allinson was always a bit of a joker anyway, so he's a bit of good fun. But Rocky would have the tactics down because he was sharp like that. He would know everything. But I was there anyway, so I know what happened after the game. So I want them to.
Were you playing in this? Forgive me if it's a stupid question, but they happen often sometimes. Were you in the Would You Believe It game when Adam scored playing for Everton? Were you playing for Everton then? What year was that?
87. I was 17. I was in the youth team.
No. What year was the youth team? What year was that, Kris? The Everton Would You Believe It?
97-98.
97-98.
So I think you were still at Nottingham Forest
then.
Forest.
Okay, you know, you said you didn't want to mention the Great Escape. My mate Dean is an Everton fan, and he's just getting over pneumonia. And I took him to the Champions League final with me because all of my Arsenal supporting mates are scumbags. That 9 goals in 8 games that you scored for Everton that saved them from relegation, you can't brush over that. Any football, I mean, Kris remembers that. You used to see it on Sky Sports News, and they'd be there and go, Kevin Campbell's done it again. You single-handedly saved Dean's club. Everton got the longest continuous run in top flight football, thanks to you. That was a magnificent achievement. So,
thanks, Danny.
Yeah, people should know just how good at a striker you were.
I appreciate that, mate. I appreciate that.
Like listen, having just come back from Turkey, wasn't it?
Myself, remember, so there's loads of games I'd love to be able to use, but no, thanks so much, mate. I appreciate that.
And on the other side of that, I've gone. Sorry,
but Danny, as you know, that Arsenal game, just for Josh and Kris, who probably I don't know if you know about this, that was George Graham's first season, and going to the semi-final of the cup to get to the first final was so key for the momentum of the football club, etc. A lot of good players. Charlie Nicholas was still there, etc. Beat Spurs after 3 games, got to the final, played Liverpool. Liverpool never lose when Ian Rush is there. When he scores, Rush scored the first goal. Arsenal win 2-1. Charlie Nicholas gets a brace. It's written in the stars.
True.
Real quick, you guys, was it Alan Smith who someone came out and said that George Graham isn't recognised enough as one of the best managers?
Alan Smith said it.
Alan Smith said it. Do you all agree with that? Do you think, when we talk about not just Premier League era, but we talk about managers that, changed clubs or had impact and what he won, do you think he gets disrespected? And is that because he did go over to the enemy, or do you just think that it was so long ago that people just don't have that memory?
I've said this quite a few times that for me, George Graham did more for the club than Arsene Wenger did. Arsenal were on its arse when George Graham took over, and he came in. He bought Perry Groves for 40 grand. He got Ian Allinson from Colchester as well. I think that might have been. I think Allinson might have been on the free transfer because they didn't renew his contract in time, so he was allowed to go. These are 2 players that are playing in the 3rd and 4th tier of English football at the time, and George Graham was just the one. He was singled out for punishment when that. We all know there was a certain Scottish manager at a certain Liverpudlian team, not naming any names, but you look at some of the transfers they bought back then, and there was another Scottishman maybe managing in other places. Lots of managers were getting involved in this kind of thing, and they singled out George Graham for that, and that was completely unacceptable. And the club hang him out to dry as well. And George Graham I know that Wenger's going to get the next statue, but for me, George Graham should have a statue because without him, we wouldn't be the club we are now. And also, when Alan Smith tweeted that, I retweeted it and went, yeah, George Graham never went 10 years without a trophy either.
Amanda, you're a massive fan of the Double G. Do you think that he doesn't get respected enough when we talk about managers who've changed clubs and stuff?
The problem is he didn't win doubles, did he? And have Thierry Henry in his team and stuff like that. But Danny is totally right. Totally right. The beginning of the 80s, we were dire. So he did change it. He led the way for Wenger. He led the way. Both of them deserve a statue. Absolutely. If it wasn't for George Graham, we wouldn't have been where we are for Wenger to take over like that. So, but it is also an age thing. I'm 50. Yeah, so if you're going to talk to 20-year-olds, they're like, George who? So
Josh.
Josh isn't a George who though, but Josh, do you watch curiously? How old? I won't ask how old you are. Clearly you're younger than me, but have you watched those games like from the George Graham era and stuff
I've
like
watched
that?
89.
Are you a football historian like that?
I've watched 89 in that regard, but I'm not
what
one to kind of go.
The Palmer game.
I haven't gone back across games that often. I think because there's so much football, or there was so much football to watch. You're like, I want to watch, because I'm a bit of a hipster, I'll watch Juve Roma that's kicking off in a couple of hours. And I'd fill my time watching, a live game where I don't know the result necessarily. But maybe that's just me, because there was so much football available. You're like, you know what? I'll watch the EFL, or because I can blame Kris for this as part of the hipsters pod when we used to do that. Was you'd watch so much football, live football, that you never got a chance to go back across to do kind of the history stuff. So I always find that.
You know who George Graham is, though, don't you? You know who he is.
Oh, George Graham. Yeah, I know exactly who he is.
He's
in
what?
terms of a manager.
He's the manager.
So he was the manager of Arsenal. We won quite a few trophies under him. And everything that, the guys have definitely educated me further on George Graham. He's more than just a man who got given a brown envelope around the back of Highbury House. Yeah, he's a lot more than
that's
that.
my point, isn't it? They're not. I don't know how old you are, Josh, but it is an age thing. People my age think George Graham is a legend. So,
but then I suppose
Amanda.
Sorry,
yes, Kevin.
Can I just say something? I think this is really important. I think ever since the Premier League's come in, it seems like the old Football League never bloody existed.
I know. No football before Sky.
Really good managers, good footballers.
Yeah.
There was good. Some of the clubs back then who maybe not doing so well now. There was some great clubs. Remember the Ipswich team? Ipswich had an unbelievable side. Aston Villa had a great side. The Everton teams.
Nottingham Forest.
I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah.
Forest.
But I mean, you think about.
There was a lot of good football teams.
But you think about kids nowadays, they wouldn't even know Leeds were a massive club. They'd like Leeds. All right, okay. But it's massive club when I was growing up, Leeds.
I think Leeds still with their Champions League run, because that was with Rio and Robbie Keane, and that's when that kind of I know it was for Duca, that kind of that all fell down that way. I think that's in the latter half, because that's 98?
That was the O'Leary
97,
era.
98, yeah.
But I'm talking about the 80s more, and I think you can. It's fair enough, Kev. If you go back further to before we were born, you look at people like Jimmy Greaves. You know, he was in hospital, wasn't he? And I was really upset. But someone of 20 is not going to know Jimmy Greaves and how good he was. So it's just an age thing.
I think it works both ways as well, because I think you do get a lot of people who go the opposite way. Liverpool fans, for example, like to remember the past a lot more than they do the present, and maybe not this season. We're never going to be at the end of that, are we? But I do think some people, it's very easy to sort of go, it's not like the old days. And even I've started to do that. I'm 37, so I'm not far behind you guys, and I still kind of, I can remember John Jensen's goal against QPR in 1994.
I was there.
I can still just about remember Anders Limpar knocking one over the Liverpool keeper. I think it was Mike Hooper at Highbury in 91. So
it was Mike Hooper.
Chris, can you remember someone like Liam Brady though?
Yeah, but not what I would remember as a modern day, because I wasn't invested in the game enough, to watch live. And I think, like you say, it like Josh said, it's very easy now to have so much on-demand football that you watch now that you just can't fit it all in, essentially. And if there was ever a time, now is the time to go back and watch some of the older things. It summed up perfectly for me. Probably a dated reference, but it's true. The scene in Fever Pitch when Colin Firth is just, I can't sleep, gets a whiskey off the top of the drawer and just sits and watches old VHS. That's what I remember. I remember having all of the VHSs and all the season reviews as a teenager, and if I was bored, that would be what I'd watch. I had a video of the 1991 season, I think it was. I used to watch that till the tape wore out. Kev was in that, I think, from memory. But I mean, they were the things you did. It was like, because my era, what I would class it as, was the teletext era. Thousands of blokes down the country on a Saturday stood outside Dixon's while their missus was shopping for shoes, either throttling each other or celebrating as teletext updated. Imagine teletext with VAR. That'd be fun now, wouldn't it? But yeah, it's a different era. Nowadays, you can literally go, bang, there you go. Any film you want, any game you want, any documentary you want, instant. For a, sort of a generation of mine and prior to mine was a lot more, you got what you got. And you were lucky if you got a Coca-Cola Cup semi-final against Villa on ITV with Big Ron and God knows who else commentating. That was Chris, what you got.
Amazing.
You made a point about Liverpool, though, they were humongous in the 80s. Absolutely, no one could beat them. But we go on about 89. So what's the difference? They won European Cups. We didn't even win. We have never won one.
Super Kev, she's defending them again.
I'm not. I'm just.
I'm telling you.
I'm just saying we go on about 89 and it's fine, but they can't go on about their stuff in the 80s. I mean, I'm sorry, but football did exist before Sky, before the Premier League, before Roman Abramovich. It did all exist. And the times where Ferguson was going with Wenger, and there's so many great things about football. I remember when Wayne Rooney, what was he, 16 when he lobbed David Seaman, or there's so much football Oh no, you didn't, Lobby. That was Beckham, wasn't it, at Wimbledon or wherever? Can't believe I remember these things.
That was in '96.
Well, I'm just saying there is football, but there was football in the '60s that I don't know about. So it's just relative to age.
Well, then is it fair, Kevin, then to compare eras? If people, like, for example, we all bring up good points, and Josh hasn't seen. Maybe he should see the Cup Winners' Cup match. Maybe he should. You know what I mean? Like, but at the same time, is it fair to compare eras then if you didn't actually see people play? Like, for example, some people who are asked who's the best player ever. For me, it's Maradona still, but I never saw Pele play. I've only seen him on video and games. I never experienced him, his time, his era. Do you think it's fair, like when we can continually compare decades? You can compare Messi and Ronaldo. They're here together now, but can we compare from yesteryear?
Saying who the best player ever is, anyway, it's not fact, it's just opinion. So just because you think Maradona is, someone might think Georgie Best is, or someone might think Pele is. It's all about opinion. There's no fact in a player of.
But can you really say it if you didn't?
Of course you can, if you feel it. I never saw Pele play, live play or anything, but Pele was outstanding. Maradona was outstanding, but so was Georgie Best. I mean, Liam Brady was outstanding. I mean, you can still think someone's outstanding just because you haven't watched them year on, year out.
Well, if Georgie Best played for England, I think he would be in the Pele-Maradona conversation. No joke. Kev, did I miss you there? Because I asked you if you can compare and how you feel about being compared. Like you being compared to like the 80s Everton strikers.
Yeah, but look, it's all relevant because if you've worn a shirt at Arsenal and at Everton or whichever team, you're gonna get comparisons. That's just life. That's just the way it goes. So it is errors. What usually happens, as we all know, is the elder, whether it's your dad, your mom, your brother, your friend, who you go with, who's older than you, passes that knowledge on to you. So you go to the games, you start to understand the people you're around, etc., the people you converse with. They kind of shape how you look at football. But obviously you have your own mind when you start getting older as well. So you look at the number 7s that play for Arsenal. You know, you look at your Liam Brady's and you look at Dave Rocastle, etc. You still say, I wore number 7 at one stage. I'm not going to compare myself to them. I was a different type of player. But there will be comparisons at certain clubs. For instance, Everton. The number 9 is like the mystical shirt. You know, it's incredible what they think of the number 9 because of Dixie Dean and what Dixie Dean done. So any number 9 after that has something to live up to. You're going to get compared. You are. It's just part of life.
All right, I'll get you guys out on this one then, because we'll include a recent one for Josh here. There's a big argument always, right? And again, we're digging deep into our archives here, people, because there's sweet FA else to talk about. There's the treble-winning team, United. There's the Invincibles, and there is the City team, the most accumulated points and all that jazz. In your opinion, and I'll start with you, Josh, I'm assuming you know about the treble-winning Man United team, right? So, of those 3 teams, who would beat who if in a little tournament? 3 teams, tournament, who's finishing on top?
I think it's going to be... That's the thing. In a tournament, it's probably going to be the treble team because they won 3 cups in that time. They went through the European Cups. In the Invincible season, if it's a league season we're playing out, we showed we were the best league team that there's ever been. We've seen how hard it is for future teams to win or to not lose a single game. We thought Liverpool were going to do it. They didn't. The City teams, even the 100-point team, still they could win games, they could convert draws, but they couldn't convert a loss, into a draw. And that was that kind of mentality that Arsenal side had, which doesn't always translate into cup competitions, I think, because there's so much more in a cup. There's this kind of added pressure. I'm not sure there's many people that can kind of be in that unbeaten run and continued that mentality across it. If Arsenal had got to the Champions League final in the Invincible era in that season, would we have gone invincible? I think that's another question as well. Were we helped in that latter half of the season that we weren't in the cups right to the end?
Danny, how do you see it? It's a little weekend, a couple of weeks. They're each going to play each other. Who finishes on top?
I think Arsenal would. You look back at that Man United treble-winning season. It was the Premier League, the FA Cup, and the Champions League. I think they only beat us by 1 or 2 points in the league, and I think that's the season where we only conceded under 20 goals that season, and they only beat us by a small amount of margin on goal difference as well. And if you're playing games, Dora, no, and if you're playing games, and the most important thing is defence. And if you can keep a clean sheet, then you're halfway towards winning the game. And then in that time, we had Anelka and Bergkamp and all those other, and Petit, and they barely won the league that season. But when we were invincible, we were magnificent that season. Defence, attack, midfield, every part of our game was magnificent, and we were fighting on so many fronts as well. So I think it was. They were quite lucky. They fluked winning the Champions League with that last-minute goal. Half of the fans had already decided to leave. The people regularly ringing up the radio and saying, I was there and I decided to leave before the game was over, because even the Man United fans knew they were beaten. And so that it wasn't a magnificent season. Their double-winning season for them wasn't as good as our double-winning seasons. So, no, I don't rate. So I think we'd easily beat them.
Kris?
I'm kind of with Josh on this one, but I do agree with Danny's point. I do think maybe there isn't quite enough being given credit to the City team, because I do think they were a lot better than we maybe give them credit for. And I think the other thing that you've got to look at with the City team as well is, although there's a lot of money behind that team and a lot of superstar players, it's the biggest problem with this question is it's such a different era. There's such different sides. That United side that won that treble was so tactically brilliant. They were unbelievably well drilled, and for all, Alex Ferguson is one of those characters that I look back then I hated him. I absolutely hated the man. And you look at now, and you sort of you just chill, don't you, with age, and you go, actually, credit where credit's due. Unless it's a Spurs player, that never changes, always scum. But you can kind of look back now at a Man United manager and go, Jesus, that man was unbelievable. What he did with some of those players, the players that he, making Park Ji-sung completely undroppable, for example, is one of life's great, amazing achievements. Making Darren Fletcher look like the player he was, so many. And I think he had that team that he had in the treble winning. Like Danny said, people had left that Bayern Munich game, and yet in the pit of my stomach, I still knew they'd win it. And I don't know why. And it's just because they just had this drive to win. And the Invincibles had the same thing. We were in games where you just looked at and you went, how? The Liverpool game is the one that really springs to mind. But it's just one of those hard questions. And I think that City team in a modern era to do what they did, and you could even arguably say the Liverpool team of this season, to be that consistent in a modern game where money is no option to most clubs, where players are readily available, where there are so many world superstars, it's a very difficult one. If I had a gun to my head, and I hate that this will be forever in the annals of time for people to look up, but I'd probably say the treble, just because of the United treble team, just because of how well drilled they were and how they you knew they'd win games. And the Invincibles, we got away with a few, let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true. We did.
We knew we'd win them in the league. I think that was the thing.
Yeah,
this United side knew they'd win. I think I saw it on Twitter a couple of days ago that I didn't realise that the first side to score more than 2 goals away to Juventus.
Yeah, was that the Roy Keane game? When
he 3-0.
And he got booked and he knew he was going to miss the final, and he single-handedly dragged them through that game, yeah.
Super Kev, what about you? Who do you think's winning that my little mini tourney, which I should set up actually? But yeah, who's winning that?
What's the criteria?
Well, they're going to play each other, and who comes out on top?
Twice, home and away. What is it?
Home and away. Look, I love it. Look at logistics and operations over here, PG, trying to get me like Dude, I haven't
Look at that attitude. Home and away.
Home and away, Super Kev.
I'll be honest. I think the most dangerous team in the tournament is Arsenal, because they've got match winners everywhere. I mean, match winners. I would go for Arsenal, because if you put all the chips in the middle of that table, we know United were great and that treble team were awesome, but there was one team they feared, that was Arsenal. And Man City have been put together with money. I get that, but I still fancy Arsenal. I really would. I would think Arsenal would win the tournament.
In 3 or 5 years' time, Amanda, maybe Newcastle will be part of this conversation.
I know.
Very scary stuff, isn't it?
As Messi signs for Newcastle.
Yeah, Messi signs for Newcastle.
53-year-old Messi.
Amanda, you have the last word on this one. So I know who you're going to pick. Or are you going to surprise us?
I don't know, if I'm honest. I think they've all got different things going for them.
That treble winning team was. They had.
It was, but they had a bit of luck as well. They had a bit of luck as well. You have to have luck to win it anyway. If it was a one-on-one, I think we would edge it, just because, as Kev said, we did have the extra special players. I think it would be us first, the treble winning, and then City. That's what I think. If it was a little table.
I just looked at that. The 99 league winning Man United side. They beat Arsenal by 1 point, 1 goal difference, and scored 2 fluky goals in the dying minutes of the game.
Yeah,
not a great team. I mean, they were one of the best teams, but Arsenal kept us in every single position. We were brilliant.
Right, and but for Dennis burying that penalty, which I said last week, I bet everything I own that night on him scoring that. Like,
still painful.
Yeah, it is.
Painful. That one game is just still. I still cannot believe we lost that game. And I remember, how old would I have been then? What year is that? 97 was it, or 98? 98.
99.
So I was born in 83. Quick maths. So that's terrible. 15 would I have been? Oh God! I just remember going to school the next day, and It was like my pets had been taken out the back and shot in front of me. I just couldn't. I couldn't process it, and I got so much stick from all because everybody in that era at school supported Man United. Obviously, even everyone from Somerset, they all supported Man United. It was just crushing, and we were. I think the worst part about that game is we were the best side that year. We really were, and it was just so crushing to see that, and that the most overrated winning goal of all time. Honestly, our poor lads were absolutely shattered when he started.
Your boy Lee Dixon's fault, eh? Should have got stuck in. We talked about this last week, right? Super Kevin should have got stuck in there. Someone should have taken him out. Damn it!
Get stuck in. It would have to come down outside the box.
Yeah,
take a red card for that one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's been wonderful talking to you guys. I hope that you and your loved ones are all safe and sound, and I've kept you a little bit over the hour, but I really appreciate it. And it isn't easy to find interesting things to talk about, although when you're talking to interesting people, you always end up getting some really good content. So thank you so much for spending your time with us, and, share it. We'll share it. And any last words, Amanda, Casey? Would you like to leave the group with anything profound?
Go on, Kev.
Yeah, definitely. Look, we've had enough of being losers and mediocre at Arsenal. It's time for Arteta to get us back to being winners. And he's going to have to rip up. If he's going to have to rip it up and start again, that's what he's going to have to do. And that's a song, by the way. You remember that old-time song, Josh? Be careful, rip it up and start again. If that's what we have to do,
oh, poor Josh.
Arteta, get the hatchet out and rip it up and start again.
You're too old. I don't even know what he's talking about.
When we'll have Josh back when the games resume, and you just wait.
We'll have Josh back when he's old enough.
Yes, you're
hey, you're younger than Aubameyang. How dare you all?
No, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining us, you guys. And Amanda, leave everyone with only one thing to say.
Yeah, thanks, guys, and always Arsenal.
In broadcast.